How are you? Alex. Alex. Alex.
Great to see you. Absolutely. Good to see you. Very nice to meet you.
Tim?
Just a note, I'll keep time for you. You have 20 minutes for your presentation, and for question and answers, and at 15 minutes, I will raise my hand to see if you've got 5 minutes left. You can do it that way. Please begin.
Well, I know you guys have heard it probably 6 times by now, but thank you for being here sincerely. So we really appreciate it, especially investing in the college culture that's here and making sure that we're invested in to go out in the community. So I'm Alex. This is my peer, Matt, and then Amber is over on the side of us. So Amber's going to begin and kind of go over the process that we took to get to our decision and strategy. And you can dive on it.
Perfect. So I'm going to start off with an agenda, kind of where we're going with this presentation. Like Alex said, I'm going to start off with an overview, followed by kind of our decision process, kind of what we did to come up with the strategy, and then I'm going to go over time constraints. Then the guys are going to take it over and kind of dive into the cost analysis of it all, and then we're going to go over with those cost analysis where we derived a low-cost equipment strategy. And then we kind of dove into the utilization of that low-cost strategy. Then we're going to end it kind of combining the two, basing off low-cost and utilization. Okay, so a little bit of an overview of the case. So we have over 16,000 packages coming from a Los Angeles sorting facility going to 4 cities located on the other side of the country. 8,000 of those going to metropolitan Chicago. 1,800 going to Madison, Wisconsin. Then we have Pittsburgh demanding 4,000, and then last but not least, we have the 2,500 going to Rochester. And then I kind of want to touch on kind of what we had to work with as far as time. So since Chicago and Madison are located in the central time zone, we had 72 hours of transit time to work with. And then Pittsburgh and Rochester, located more east, we lost an hour, giving us only 71. Okay, so here is our decision process, kind of our roadmap of thinking, kind of how it got to our equipment strategy. So we first off looked at the time constraint. We wanted to rule out the ones that simply did not make the cut. Like why would we further look into them if they wouldn't even get their own? So from those, we calculated the cost per lane, and from that cost per lane, we did a cost per package of those methods. Then we looked at the lowest one. From that, we wanted to see, okay, so how much are they utilizing the equipment, even though they're the cheapest? And then, like I said, we combined those to come up with the final strategy. So before I dive into the time constraints, I kind of want to explain this chart. We use it on numerous slides in our presentation. So the first column, we have the lanes, so Chicago, Madison, Pittsburgh, and Rochester. These first 3 utilize no rail, they're all motor. And then the no stops basically means the no intermediate stops, followed by with intermediate stops, and then the team driver. The next batch, or the next 3, are 53-foot container on rail, and then in Chicago they're flipped to a 53-foot trailer. The last 3 are the piggybacking ones, so there is no switch, they just come right off the rail. So the first column, the single driver no stops, none of those met the time constraints simply because they have to rest for 8 hours. So that took a lot of time. For Rochester, many were ruled out simply because they're so far and the time kind of went into that. These ones that are in gray are not applicable because since loads go to Chicago, they did not have to be switched to be further transported since they're already there by the rail. These 2 are kept because there's still costs that go into that, even though they're not further transported.
So this is an overview of the cost that we came up with for each lane and also for each equipment type. So just to give you a little overview of how do we calculate these costs. So for the motor, we basically took into account Each equipment, we took into account the amount of miles to each location. We multiplied that by the mileage cost, which included all maintenance costs and everything of that sort. And then we also took into account the unloading cost of each package, as well as the sorting cost at the destination for the motor. So, and now for the rail, we also, the way that we came up with that cost, we basically, we took the initial rail rate for each piece of equipment. After that, we also accounted for the maintenance cost. We accounted for the sorting cost as well as the drayage cost. And then also for the containers, there was also the chassis cost as well that we took into account. And then for the ones over here, the direct loads, we just did not have a chassis cost with those, but the cost for the different maintenance costs was a little bit different. So that's what went into each of these costs that we calculated. The bolded costs are the ones that we came up with that were the least expensive for each destination. So for Chicago, we basically saw that the 53-foot containers were the least expensive option to get to Chicago. And then for the rest of the destinations, a 53-foot trailer was the least expensive option that we came up with when calculating these. And so we also calculated this for the 28-foot double trailers as well. These were more expensive, but we didn't see that these actually had the value of the 53-foot trailers whenever we did our calculation.
So then from those costs per lane, we took that down and looked at cost per package. So the main way that we looked at breaking this down, we took the demand for that lane and broke it down into how many pieces of equipment we would need to get that there per the mode that we were using. So, for example, we had about 3.9 trailers utilized for the Chicago move, so that would obviously be rounded up to 4 full trailers that we were using. So that lost utilization is lost revenue. That's going to reflect in the cost per package and increase it a little bit. So that, again, those costs are just going to relate, and the same bolded costs are also the same bolded costs from the cost per lane. So Chicago is going to go rail and then get dray to the sorting facility. And then Madison, Pittsburgh, and Rochester are all motor as well, going straight from LA. And then we're going to break down in the next slide how many pieces of equipment that we were using. This first table is going to summarize what pieces of equipment we were using. So again, price per package as well as the price per load that we had for that lane. So if you look at Metro Chicago, we had about a 97% utilization broken down between their 8,000 demand and the 3.89. So that 11% of that last 53-foot trailer or container is what we're losing on there in the utilization. And then Madison at the 1,800 demand rate is about 85% utilized. Pittsburgh with the 1.8, roughly 53-foot trailers going all motor, we had a 94% utilization. So our biggest area of concern when we did this was Rochester, and we knew that kind of going based on the lane size. So we were only utilizing about 18% if we were going to stick with the 53-foot trailer route that we were currently going with. So that utilization was only looking around 60%. So we knew that that was somewhere that we could look at and dive into to combine the two strategies between the lowest cost as well as a couple different equipment options.
So as we further looked into this, we really said, okay, so what option are we going to use to increase our utilization? And we really turned to the 53-foot containers because these actually do not have to be direct loads. We can mix and match different packages to different destinations, and then at Chicago, we can actually transport them, we can sort them and actually have them go to different destinations at that Chicago sorting facility. So if you can see over here, we actually, the 18% of the 53-foot trailer, we calculated the second 53-foot trailer going to Rochester, there was 367 packages that would have been on that Rochester trailer. So we said, okay, how can we get these 367 packages on another piece of equipment? So first we looked at the container that was already going to Chicago. The very last container was only 89% utilized. So that 11% we calculated, that wouldn't be enough. That would not be enough to be able to have those 367 packages be in that trailer, in that container. So we actually change the Madison route from a trailer to a container. And we said, okay, it is slightly more expensive for us to have this trailer be turned into a container for Chicago, but the net benefit, let's see if it would net benefit us better. So we took that Madison load, turned into a container. It was 87% utilized. So we have our calculation here. We have 11% for the Chicago trailer left over. Container. And we have 87. We have 13% left over for the container going to Madison. That gives us 24% extra space in both of those containers. So we were able to see that, if you see up here, a 53-foot container holds 2,058 packages. We multiplied that by 24%. We saw that we could fit 493 packages in that container going to Chicago. So that is more than enough space to house these 367 packages. So we then said, you know what? We don't have to have another piece of equipment at all for these 2,050 miles going from LA to Chicago. So after it got to Chicago, we would actually use a 28-foot trailer from Chicago to Rochester, which would also increase the utilization as well. And then we'll go to the next slide and we'll talk about that a little bit more.
So again, this is similar to that previous slide, but outlining where we saw that increase in utilization and actually decrease in one of our prices per package. So that Rochester price per package went down from $4.33 to $2.96 when we looked into two separate modes of transportation for that lane. So your first 53-foot all-motor move from LA to Rochester would be roughly $5,400. And then that move combining the container with the 28-foot trailer all-motor move would be around $1,800. So we divided that again by the demand and got that $2.96 per package cost. The Madison did go up a little bit to $2.46 per package. However, that was offset in the total move cost by that Rochester decrease. So we did see the biggest change in utilization at Rochester from the 59% to the 78%, which obviously empty space is lost money. So trying to get that utilized as best we can to increase that optimization of the lane.
So this is going on to question number 2. For subsequent days, what changed in our equipment strategy? So basically, for Thursday and Friday, basically we saw that there was no change in our equipment strategy because the delivery would be on a weekday, and we also made the assumption that the trucks, just like many companies today, the trucks still move on the weekends. The trucks don't stop, and also the sorting facilities still sort packages as well. But the case did state that there was no Saturday and Sunday delivery. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, those were scheduled to deliver on Saturday and Sunday whenever we changed to the subsequent days. So even with the fastest mode of transport, the delivery could not have been made on Saturday or Sunday. Could not have been made because there was no delivery. So for Tuesday, it is important to note that we found that two modes were actually able to make it on time with a team, a driver team. It would be a lot more expensive, but the case stated multiple times that actually it was it was very important to meet the delivery time. And those two modes were Chicago as well as Madison, Wisconsin. But all of their times, we saw that you actually simply could not meet the time that was required to get there. Especially for Wednesday, but for Tuesday, I couldn't meet the time to get to Rochester or Pittsburgh. So we said, you know what, instead of spending all the money to team it there, since the delivery is going to get pushed out to Monday anyways, why not use the lowest cost method to get it to the destination? We need to use the lowest cost method because there's no sense in spending all this money whenever it's not going to get there anyways. So if we go to the next slide. So this is just to show you the cost savings that we did find, actually. So we went back, and earlier you saw that we red barred out a lot of the things that we could not meet in terms of the time constraints. But now we actually were able to use some of those methods because we had Saturday and Sunday as extra time. So we actually decided to use a 53-foot container to go to Chicago. and then transfer that 53-foot container to a 53-foot trailer to go to Rochester. This was for that first full container that we spoke about earlier. First full trailer. And then those remaining packages for that we were going to put from Rochester onto the Chicago as well as the Madison loads. We actually did calculate that because since the container it holds less packages, there was still enough room to where we could switch to the container and still have those extra packages be on the Chicago and Madison containers. And so it reduced our cost per package from $296 to $293, and that is our presentation.
So if we have any questions, obviously we're here to field them. And Amber's going to pass out a formula sheet that we use to calculate some of our costs and prices, if that makes it a little easier to visualize. I know it's a lot of numbers get thrown up there at once, so she'll have that as well if you want to take a look.
So I have a question relative to your delivery to Rochester. So why would you load a 53-foot trailer and a 28-foot pup? Why wouldn't you just load 2 pups and take the 2 pups to Rochester?
We actually saw that the 2 pups, are you saying why not have it load the 2 pups in LA?
No.
Okay.
Once you're in Chicago, you said you were going to transload to a 53-foot and any extra to Rochester was going to go in a 28-foot pup, right? Why wouldn't you load 2 28-foot pups and not use the 53-foot?
Well, the 2 28-foot pups, from our calculation, it was actually more expensive. The case did say that there was a 6% capacity increase, but with our calculations, we found that not to be true. And so if we did do the 2 28-foot pups, we actually would not have enough space from our calculations. We would actually have to have 3 28-foot pups. And so that actually would be more expensive than using a 53-foot trailer in 1 pup from our calculations.
Did y'all develop like an overall aggregated cost per chance, like maybe for a week's time frame?
We did not. We were deliberating on that before we came in here. Yeah, we saw that cost change between the Rochester, and I guess that's what we were looking at in terms of savings, because that is where we saw a lot of that.
And the case did state that for the first question, it was focusing on cost per package. So that's what we were really focusing on was the cost per package.
Sure.
We could calculate it.
Oh, it's just a thought, depending on who your audience is, say for example, if your audience is environmental and financial types, they may be interested in what kind of savings they could get, on for maybe at least weekly or maybe annually, it makes more sense to me. We can save X amount of money if we do this service-wise and equipment-wise versus maybe what we're doing now or versus versus a high-cost alternative, which might improve service, but it doesn't improve the marketing effectiveness in any case too much. It's too fast. So just a thought, for consideration.
We considered adding the total dollar value and showing the difference, but our kind of thought process is we saw a whole bunch of dollar values on there, and we kind of wanted to focus on the utilization, the cost per package.
I did like at the very beginning that the table you did with the colors and how, I mean, that was very, it outlined it very clearly, so I did appreciate the way you laid that out.
We know we were kind of overwhelmed with numbers, so we figured
Yeah.
we'd make it a little easier just to kind of see the big picture and kind of where we're going with it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.